A drunkard lost his way through the woods, and he bumped into a preacher who was baptizing people by the bank of the river. The preacher was taken aback by the smell of the booze and probably thought that this drunkard has come to receive baptism. So he asked this drunkard, "Brother, are you ready to find Jesus?" The drunkard was clueless about what the preacher was asking him. He just nodded his head. So the preacher got hold of the head of this drunkard, dunked him under water and lifted him up and said, "Brother, have you found Jesus?" Still clueless what the preacher was saying, he said, "No." The preacher was very upset. So he got hold of his head again and dunked him under water and lifted him up and said, "Brother, have you found Jesus?" Still, he said, "No." This time the preacher was very angry. No one who came to him for baptism said no. So caught hold of his head, dunked him under water and kept him for a long time. This time he was panting for breath, literally panting for breath. He lifted him up and said, "Brother, for one last time, have you found Jesus?" Still gasping for breath. And after he had taken his breath, looked at the preacher and said, "Preacher, are you sure this is where you lost him?" On a more serious note, my dear friends, have we lost Jesus somewhere in our lives, in our homes, and in our families? Have we lost Jesus somewhere in our homes, in our lives, and in our families? Some years ago, there was a meeting of all the salesmen in Chicago. It was a week-long meeting, and as soon as the meeting got over, they were all rushing through the airport corridor to catch the last flight, to catch the flight to get back to be with their family for their Friday night dinner. And as they were rushing through the airport corridor, one of the salesmen toppled a cart filled with apples. He didn't bother to stop because he was all busy trying to catch his flight. All but one. One salesman stopped, turned around, and he noticed the apples were scattered all over the floor. And the girl who was selling those apples was literally groping on the floor trying to collect the fallen apples. She was blind. So he took a deep breath, turned around and said to the rest of the salesmen, "Please inform our family that I will be late for dinner." Turned around, walked over to where this girl was on the floor. He got onto the floor and began to collect all the fallen apples and put them back into the cart. And as he was collecting, he noticed that some of the apples were spoiled because of the fall. So he put the spoiled apples aside. He took out a $50 bill, placed it in the hands of this blind girl, and said, "I'm sorry for spoiling your day. I hope this is okay for all your spoiled apples." He didn't wait for any reply. He turned around and was walking towards his destination to catch his next flight. As he took a few steps forward, he heard a voice. "Mister, Mister." He stopped, turned around. As he looked into those blind eyes, he heard the voice again. "Mister, Mister, are you Jesus? Mister, Mister, are you Jesus?" He didn't know what to say. But as he walked to catch his next flight, the question of this girl kept bouncing in his heart and ringing in his ears. Are you Jesus? When was the last time someone stopped you and asked you that question? Are you Jesus? Isn't that our calling in this world as Christians, to be so much like Jesus. Whether we are at home, whether we are recreating in our workplace, whether we are walking through the mall, or whether we are having fun, to be more like Jesus. The theme as we bring this whole novena to an end is an invitation for us as individuals and as families to be Jesus in this broken world. The church, by her very nature, is missionary. And when she is missionary, it's not about going on the street corners or on rooftops, thumping the Bible and saying, this is what you need to do. No. It is to be witnesses of the gospel by our very life. And that's why St. Francis of Assisi beautifully said, preach at all times. If necessary, use words. Preach at all times. If necessary, use words. We are called by our very lives to be witnesses of the gospel. In other words, to be Jesus to one another in this broken world. By virtue of our baptism, my dear friends, every one of us is chosen by God to be the witnesses of God's kingdom. It's not just the business or the preoccupation of the priest or religious. Every one of us, irrespective of who our calling is, as priests, religious, laity, married, single, young, old, all of us, no matter what walk of life we come from, we're called to be witnesses of Jesus. But the most important question, my dear friends, you cannot give Jesus to others unless you know Jesus in your own life. You cannot be Jesus to others unless you have not fully understood what it means to be Jesus in your own lives. What does it mean to be Jesus? When Jesus called us, he called us for two purposes. When he called the disciples in the Gospel of Mark, he called them for two purposes. First of all, to be with him. Secondly, to be sent out. He called them for two purposes. To be with him means discipleship, to sit at the feet of Jesus and to gaze and contemplate the splendor and the glory of Christ, so that we may become more and more of the one we contemplate. Discipleship, to sit at the feet of Jesus and to learn to be more like him. And to be sent out, which is apostleship, to go out and be witnesses. You cannot evangelize unless you are not evangelized yourselves first. You cannot give something to others unless you don't have that something first in your own lives. It's important for us to know who Jesus is. Do you know Jesus? For some of you, this question might come across as a most stupid question. Father, we have been cradle Catholics. Ask me, what is it that you want to know about Jesus? Oh, we know who his parents were. We know where he was born. We know how long he lived. The trouble with most of us, my dear friends, we have kindergarten knowledge of faith. We haven't really graduated in our faith. We know the basics of faith. We know a lot about informations about Jesus, but do we really know Jesus? We can know a lot about Jesus, but do we really know Jesus? To give you a simple illustration, there was this huge religious gathering, and before they could begin this religious gathering, they invited a young man to come and recite Psalm 23. The young man walked up to the stage and he recited Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, near restful waters. He leads me. He had such fantastic memory, such great intonation and diction. So much so, after he had finished reciting Psalm 23, there was a thunderous applause and a standing ovation. But there was an elderly man in the crowd. He walked up to the organizers and said, "Can I recite Psalm 23 all over again?" The organizers did not want to disappoint this elderly man. After all, at Psalm 23 said, "All right, go ahead." And the old man walked up to the stage, and with his faltering voice, he began, "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Near restful waters he leads me." And after he had finished, there was pin-drop silence. There was no standing ovation. There was no applause. There were tears rolling down the eyes of everyone who listened to that elderly man. The organizers were spellbound. How is it that the same psalm received two different kinds of reception? The young man who recited the psalm first, he walked up to the stage and he said, "I know the difference. When I recited psalm, you all gave me a standing ovation and an applause. But when that old man recited Psalm 23, you were in tears." Well, I knew all about the psalm, but that old man knew the shepherd. I knew all about the psalm, but that old man knew the shepherd. The first way to be evangelizers is to know whom you are evangelizing about. It's not about having informations. People can go to Google today and get all the information they want. Why do they need you? But they want you because you have something to share by your very lives. You are a testimony of all that Christ proclaimed by your very lives. And so get to know who Jesus is before you can give him to others. When you know him, when you have experienced him, and when you share that Jesus with others, it makes a huge difference. Where do we start to evangelize? How do we go about being Jesus in this broken world? Acts 1, chapter 1, verse 8 beautifully says, the Lord, after his ascension, is commissioning the disciples. When the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you shall be my witnesses, starting from Jerusalem to Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. Jesus got his sequence right. He did not say that you will be my witnesses starting from the ends of the earth, from Samaria and Judea and Jerusalem, but it was the other way around. He said, you will be my witnesses starting from Jerusalem to Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. What does it mean? Starting from Jerusalem, which was your hometown, which was Jesus' hometown, which was the hometown of the disciples. In other words, the Lord is saying, first be witnesses in your homes. You could be atrociously terrible in your homes, but sweet outside. Doesn't make a difference. You gotta be witnesses first in your own homes. To be Jesus to one another as husband and wife, parents and children. If charity begins at home. If people at home don't experience that love and warmth, you cannot share that with those around you. First, be witnesses in your own homes. And we have been discussing over the last 8 days of how we can be witnesses in our homes and in our families. Judea and Samaria happen to be neighboring towns. When you start first in your homes, you already become a witness to your neighbors. Second, you become witnesses to your neighbors, to those around you. People in your neighborhood should say, wow, look at that family. There's something special about them. Look at the love and the unity and the warmth. Look at the way they have brought up their children with respect. If that's what your neighbors who don't know Christ have to say about you, and if they want to walk up to you and say, I want to know about the God you worship, because of the way you live your lives and how you meet together to pray. I want to know more about him. You have already evangelized those in your neighborhood. And then to the ends of the earth, in your place of work, wherever you go, you are called to be witnesses of Christ. The gospel today, Jesus says, be ye salt of the earth and light of the world. What a strange analogy. Have you ever asked yourself, how can I be salt of the earth? Of all the things that Jesus could have said, he's asking us to be salt of the earth. Just like to go into the meaning of what Jesus meant to be salt of the earth. Salt during the time of Jesus had three important functions. First of all, salt, as we know today, is used to add taste to our food, right? When you have food without salt, it's not tasty, it's tasteless. But when you add a little pinch of salt into your food, it brings taste. In other words, the Lord is saying, be like that salt that adds flavor and taste in the lives of others. You should be that channel of grace that brings joy and love and flavor wherever you go. You make a difference. People long to be in your company because of what you do as an agent of salt. You bring flavor and taste to the lives of those around you. To the many tasteless life around you, you bring that flavor of joy and love. The first thing that the salt does is to add taste. The second function that the salt is being used during the time of Jesus was to preserve. During the time of Jesus, there was no refrigerators. The only way they could preserve meat is to stack them in sacks of salt, and they could preserve the meat for a long time. Fish and meat. You, as Christians, are called to preserve, like the salt, all that is good and beautiful in this world. In a world that is fast losing what is good and what is bad, we need you Christians to preserve whatever is good and beautiful in your homes, in your families, and in the world around. So stand for what is just and right. Be true to your conscience. Be the voice of justice in this world. Preserve whatever is good and bring about transformation in this world. And lastly, salt is also used to destroy. In the ancient world, when one kingdom defeated another kingdom as a sign of total destruction, they would smear the salt on the face of the earth, on the land, so that nothing grows. Salt was used as a sign of destruction. Sometimes we use salt as an antiseptic to destroy bacteria. Be that agent to destroy all that is negative in this world. Hatred, anger, unforgiveness, dissension, jealousy, insecurity, gossip, all that is dividing humanity. Destroy all that is evil in this world and preserve what is good and bring flavor into the lives of others. This is a beautiful way of how you can be witnesses of the gospel. And that's what Jesus said, be salt of the earth, be light of the world, and let your light shine before men so that your Father in heaven be pleased and glorified. I'd like to conclude with a little incident that happened some time ago during the Second World War in Korea. Korea came under heavy artillery fire, and one of the remote villages where the church was, outside the church was a life-size statue of Jesus Christ. And because of the heavy artillery fire, not only the church was destroyed, but even the statue of Christ was destroyed. The American soldiers were helping the parish priest to put the parish again, and they were also putting the pieces of the statue back together again. They managed to do it, but then they found the hands of Christ were missing. And so they said to the parish priest, we could fly down the statue to America, get the hands fixed and bring them back again. The parish priest said, we don't need any of that. And so he let the statue be there without hands, and he left a little note beneath the statue. And all those who came to that church read that little note. And the little note read, "Christ has no hands now, but yours." Christ has no body now, but yours. No hands, no feet on earth, but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he wants to look with compassion on this world. Yours are the hands with which he wants to go about doing good. Yours are the feet with which he wants to walk the length and breadth of this world, bringing joy, flavor, preserving whatever is good, and destroying sin and evil in this world. I promised you yesterday that I would have a special reflection for all the singles. And I know a lot of singles have come here with great zeal and enthusiasm. Being single, like marriage, is a calling, is a vocation that comes from God. The first thing that I want all the singles to know, being single is a gift. St. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 7, he talks about singleness as a gift. Very rarely you come across the calling to be single as a gift, but the New Testament, St. Paul talks about being single as a gift, and I'll tell you why. And so, Jesus says, "Blessed are those to whom this grace is given to be single." Matthew 19, verse 11. Blessed are those to whom this grace has been given, to those who are called to be single. So first of all, those who are single here, I want you to look at yourself as a calling from God and a gift given to you to be single. Single, or being single, has its own advantage. St. Paul goes on to elaborate what are the advantages of being single. It's better to be single, he says. What is the first advantage of being single? The advantage is that it saves you the trouble of marriage or marriage life. Okay, I'm not going to water down all that I've said over the last 8 days, but this is another perspective of Saul. It saves you the worries and anxieties of daily married life, of raising kids, or getting your work and your house organized. It saves you the trouble. Why? So that it frees your heart to serve the Lord with single-mindedness. It frees your heart to serve the Lord with single-mindedness. That's the reason why. You don't have the cares and worries of the family life, so that you could devote so much of your time and energy in doing the Lord's work. And I know of so many singles. I had the privilege of journeying with so many who have devoted their lives in working for the church, tirelessly, with such dedication. And today, I want to acknowledge on behalf of the church your contribution for making this church truly a family of God through your devoted service. No matter how insignificant your service may be, you are rewarded. The Lord sees the work that you put in every day for the good of the community of faith and for the church. And may God bless you for your singleness. There are different reasons. Some make a choice to be single. Some, due to circumstances, are single. Some make a choice. I know so many who made a choice to be single for the sake of the family, for an aging parent. They want to give up marriage so that they could serve their aging parents. Or for poverty in home, they were the single breadwinner. They want to earn so that everybody else could have the best. I know so many of them. For some, it could be circumstances. They tried their best, but they were not able to find the right life partner. So there was frustration. Some who have lost a spouse or gone through a divorce. Through circumstances, you could be single. But look at it as a gift. And you have grace and for a purpose. Being single is hard. So is married life. Alright? So grass is always greener. For married people, wow, look at these singles. They have nothing to worry about. They have such fantastic life. Let them be single for some time and they'll get to know, oh, look at these married people. They have such a fantastic life. Grass is always greener on the other side. There's hardship on both sides. To be single is hard. To be married is also hard and challenging. There are moments when you go through loneliness. There are moments of temptation. But I want you to know the Lord who has called you, who has given you this gift, will also give you the grace to be faithful to your singleness. So, there's temptations even in married life. But we are called to be faithful to their spouses. Likewise, in single life, there's also temptations, but we are called to be faithful to our spouse, Christ. But the good news for all singles, your state of life is not permanent. Is that a good news or a bad news? We are all going to get married at the end of time, at the great wedding feast of the Lamb. The church, the bride which we are, will be married to Christ our spouse. So our state of single will never be forever, alright? So don't get disappointed, but be happy and rejoice, for we will join our Maker and Creator, our spouse, the great wedding feast of the Lamb. And that's why every Eucharist that you celebrate here on earth is a foretaste and a foreshadowing of that great wedding feast that we will enjoy for all eternity in heaven. So you're actually partaking of that meal, that great feast that awaits all of us at the end of time. So what do we call to do as singles? First of all, thank God for the gift of being single. Thank God. I know it's not easy, but the Lord is with you. You have your fears, your moments of insecurity, temptations, but thank God. Second, do all you can to be godly. Alright? Don't go the wrong way. Don't get into addictions, but do all you can to remain godly. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. As long as you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, you can walk on troubled waters of life. You can scale through anything. And I want you to know that being single is not second best. Alright? So don't look at yourself as second-class citizens in God's kingdom. It is as much a calling as marriage is. Alright? I'm not trying to dissuade those who are planning to get married here. Alright? Please go ahead with your vocation to marriage. And remember, you belong to a family. You're not alone. You belong to the larger family, the church. This is your community. This is your family. We are your brothers and sisters, your parents, your elders, your loved ones. So as single, don't look at yourself as being isolated. You belong to the larger family, the church. We are the body of Christ.